This is Module 10, Lesson 3, Write Equations from Tables and Graphs. So we're going to take those types of things that we've been doing in this lesson, like taking the equations, and we're going to look at them in tables and graphs this time. So we're still looking at the independent and dependent variables. Let's take a look at the first one. So we're going to take this right here to complete these three things. So we're going to look at the table for patterns. Describe the patterns found in Table A. As x increases by, if we look here, we go from 2 to 3.25 to 4.5 up to 5.75 and then up to 7. So each time we go up by 1.25. And y, if we look, when we go up, to get from 10 to 11.25, then 12.5 to 13.75, and then 13.75 to 15, we're also going up by 1.25. Each value of y is blank units blank, then the corresponding x. So let me change my color here. So this means, how do I get, they're asking each value of y, so when we go from y to x, how do we go from y to x? If I look at that, to go back and forth here, it's 8. So there's 8 difference here. Each value of y is 8 units greater than the corresponding x value. So 2 plus 8 is 10, 11.25 plus 8, 3.25 plus 8 is 11.25. So it's doing the same thing. We have to have the same relationship going from the x to the y. Write a verbal model describing an equation in the form y equals x plus p to represent the relationship between the values in the table. So what this means is y is equal to x plus, now on here, instead of putting p, to get from x over to y, we have to add 8. So we're going to be plus 8. And now we're going to write an equation from those words. So y is equal to x plus 8. And I know that was kind of confusing, but remember on these first ones, they work the problem out. And as we get going through them, they get quicker and less things to do. Let's look at the next one. Mara is making bracelets. For every red bead, she uses 4 green beads. So 1 red, 2, 4 green ones. So that's my ratio right there. The graph represents the situation. Use the graph to complete each part of the table. So on this one, red is on the bottom. So when I'm at 1 red bead, I'm at 4 green beads. When I'm at 2, I go to 8, 3, 12, 4, I go to 16. So I'm going to take that information, I'm going to transfer it over here. So for 1 red bead, we are at 4. I run to 2, I jump to 8. I run to 3, I jump to 12. I run to 4, I jump to 16. Now we're going to answer these questions down here. B says, look at the table for patterns. Describe the patterns found in the table. As x increases, so each time x goes up, it's only going up by 1 if we look through it this way. Let's look at y. I go 4, 8, 12, 16. Y increases by 4. Each value of y is blank the corresponding value of x. So if I look at this, to get from 1 to 4, 2 to 8, 3 to 12, 4 to 16, each time that's multiplying by 4. So each of y is 4 times the corresponding value of x. C, write a verbal model of the form y. So we're going to start with y is equal to, and let's put our p in this time, which would be 4, and we're just multiplying that by x. So y is equal to 4 times x, which in a real problem, I'm not going to make you write this out. I'm just going to make you write it out as the equation. So this means y is equal to 4x. And I'm just putting that 4 and that x right next to each other because that means multiplication. The graph shows the distance d in miles a car traveled in t in hours. So we have that right here. We're going to take this information and we're going to fill this out. So if I'm at 1, I go to 50. 2 is at 100. 3 is at 150. And 4 is at 200. Complete the sentence to describe the pattern shown in the graph. As the first coordinate of each of the points increases, so each time down here, we're just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're increasing by 1. The second goes up by, we go 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. That goes up by 50. The value of the distance d in miles is always 50 times the value of the t in hours. So the equation that models this relationship, we're going to have our d, because d is over here, d equals 50t. So that means each time we're going up by 50. The next part is our check understanding. So make sure on check understanding, you're going to try to do this by yourself first. You're taking this information, so you're taking the table, trying to write an equation, taking the graph, trying to write an equation. So try to do that and then come back to it. So let's take a look here. When we write an equation, we are always going to start with the y first. So y equals, and now we're going to figure out how to get from the left to the right. So how do I make 0 into 12, 1 into 13, 2 into 14, 3 into 15, and 4 into 16? It needs to be the same thing because there's a rule that goes all the way down. I know that 0 plus 12 is 12, 1 plus 12 is 13, 2 plus 12 is 14. So we're going to be adding here. So we're going to take our letter x, any number that's going to be in the x column. If I add 12 to it, I will get the number in the y column. Again, when I write the equation over here, I'm going to start with y equals. And each time, if I look at it, I go 3, 6, 9, 12. So each time I go up by 3, so that means we're going to be multiplying by 3. So I'm going to take whatever is down here, and I just plug it in for where x is, and that should equal that for me, because 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. And then here is our what do you remember. So we're taking this nice and slow, and we're going to pay attention. Okay, this is the what do you remember, so you need to see if you can write the equations and then check it over to see how you did. Okay, let's look at this first one. Remember, we're always going to start with y equals. Then we're going to figure out how we get from the x to the y. So how do I make a 0 into a 14, a 1 into a 15? And remember, it has to be the same thing going all the way down. So if I did 0 times 14, that would give me 0. So that means I need to add. So I know I'm going to add 14. So every time I have x, if I add 14 to it, I will get y. In this table, start with y equals. To get from 0 to 0, don't really know what to do in that instance. But from 1 to 13, 2 to 26, 3 to 39, and 4 to 52, it means I'm going to multiply by 13, because 1 times 13 is 13. 2 times 13 is 26. So I'm going to take 13 and I'm multiplying it by x, because whatever number is here, I can plug it in for x and multiply it by 13. On this one, I'm starting at 0. Anytime we start at 0, 0, it's going to be a multiplication question. And if you look here, I'm going to start with y equals. Every time we go up, I have a half, a 1 and a half, 2, and then we have 2 and a half, and 3. So if we're going up by a half each time, and so be at 0, 0, 0 times a half would be a 0, 1 times 1/2 would be 1. So we're going to be multiplying by 1/2 x. On this side, if you notice, instead of starting at 0, 0, we're starting up here on the 1. That means we're going to be adding. The only time we can be multiplying is when we start down here at the 0, 0. If we're up higher, that means we're going to add. So I have y equals, and I know I'm going to be adding, so I'm going to do x plus, and let's see what we go up by every time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means I'm going up by 1 each time. Each time I'm adding 1. And then here's our last two. I'm going to start with y equals. To get from 0 to 16, I have to add 16. 1 plus 16 is 17. 2 plus 16 is 18. So y equals x plus 16. And our last one, to get from 0 to 0, anytime you have 0, 0 at the top, that means we're going to multiply. To get from 1 to 14, I'm going to multiply by 14. 2 times 14 is 28. 3 times 14 is 42. So we're going to start with y equals. We're going to multiply by 14, so 14x. And I know this takes a little bit more time, so I'm not looking for mastery right now. This is an introduction level of this for you, so just take your time.